Years of experience running a successful business, team, crews, design staff that are doing an excellent job, and you are winning work. In fact, you are putting your own touch on your community, and it feels good. You're not only just employing great people, but you are impacting your community. And that means a lot to you as a legacy builder. However, when it comes to growing your business, you know you need to take the next step. You know you need government contracts. You know the next thing that you need to do is hunker down and start bidding. And you probably already done a lot of it so far. You put in some bids for some fee-based work, or maybe you've submitted a couple of proposals at this point, but you hear nothing. There's no responses, crickets. Sometimes you might get a formal letter that puts you out of the running, but at the end of the day, you just don't know how to compete. And you're reading the different articles and you're talking to your peers that say, well, maybe the best way to get in is subcontracting. And that is one strategy of many ways to position your win in government contracting. One of our clients came to us with no government experience. In fact, she went ahead and she got all the certifications she possibly could for her business. And guess what she revealed to me? She revealed she didn't actually need any of them to win the contracts we helped her get. And one of the comments that she shared in some feedback in a conversation that we had several months ago, she said that one of the purchasing officers actually shared that her proposal stood out. In fact, he asked, "Who did your proposal?" And she was like, "Oh, well, we got them done." And he says, "Whatever they're doing it right." You see, one of the things that causes many businesses like yours, contractors, engineering firms, consultants, is that they get stuck with trying to translate what they do to speak to a buyer, to a contractor. And that contracting officer, whether that's federal, state, local, they don't know or they don't understand what makes you unique. You see, you're putting in the same language that you would as you're talking about your business, but at the end of the day, that has to be translated in a way that they can understand the value of what you bring. This is not just value based pricing, but this is articulating your difference in the marketplace. You already know there are dozens and dozens and dozens of other contractors and firms that are bidding on work that you would. You already know that. And you already know that they're getting their certifications too. And so it seems like the only variable left is price. And that actually is untrue in most situations. Where it comes down to where you are in the middle, kind of anchoring between being an established business and also growing and scaling your business, you have to realize that there's certain things that you need to grow out of. You're already feeling it. You're feeling that dry spout of referrals. I mean, they were coming in hot and heavy. But unless you go to more networking events and more, meet and greets and more lunch and learns, that growth stops quickly. But you're busy growing a business, setting up systems and processes and capturing a vision for the future. How do you have time to go to more networking events? Actually, it's kind of a mixture of a few things. One thing that needs to be corrected immediately is understanding how to delegate your work, like delegating the responsibilities that could be done by someone else. This is increases the value of your business, but it also decreases risk, which is what you're trying to do. You're trying to decrease risk. You're trying to make sure that everything is stable. Take it from 10 to 5 to cool down from what it's been for so long, hot and heavy, go, 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 stress, anxiety all the time. It becomes your new normal. And what happens at this point is a realization that you just can't keep going the way that you've been. In fact, it's one of the reasons why many businesses just close their doors because the owners just are exhausted. Well, here's what I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you in this video three things that you need to know about what's actually happening in the government contracting world. So, the first thing that's happening right now is they're not able to see your value. So, what do I mean by value? A lot of contractors and engineering firms, what they do is they stay focused on all of the accolades. Like they see the big firms do this and they think, well, I have to look like that. I have to model my existing business like that. And you see, one of the things that I realized and learned through, thousands of proposals at this point and helping clients achieve over $5.7 billion dollars since 2020 is that we want to lean into your strengths and value. We don't want to model what bigger firms are doing. We want to emphasize what makes you, your business, unique. One of our clients, she actually was going up against 11 competitors, and all of the competitors were bigger firms. They were all big firms. In fact, she was a solopreneur going up against huge firms like mid-size and large organizations. And I remember having a conversation about whether or not this was going to make sense, right? We didn't know about the 11 firms until after she bid, because she was smart. But I remember our conversation around strategy. You see, we initially looked at the opportunity and we saw that there was a gap. There was a gap in how the client wanted it to be delivered. And so instead of running away from what made her unique, she leaned into it. You know what her differentiator was? What made her unique? What made her different? What made her stand out? The fact that she was a small business that didn't have all of the systems that could be available and could be one call away for the client. They love that. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, it had to have come down to price. Well, actually, the client, the procurement officer for that state and that local agency, it was a local agency, they actually selected her specifically, not on price, because they set the price. They said, this is our budget, make it work. And she came back, and that's what she leaned into. It wasn't price, it was her difference, it was the strength. Now, what do you think that does to a six-figure business that is just getting awarded $1 million contract? It changes everything. I remember after she got awarded the contract, we had a debrief conversation, just going through her notes and her feedback from the client. And she shared with me that she was going to immediately go and hire someone that could help her deliver the work, someone that could be a clone of her so that she didn't have to be available all the time and go and get more contracts. This is the smartest move. And you already know that this is the possibility when it comes to government contracting. It's all about how you position yourself. Now, if you're thinking you're going to wait for the solicitation, think wrong. Think again. Okay. So we're going to move into the second thing that I want to share with you today, which is to get ahead. Even as a subcontractor, you want to get ahead. Well, Melinda, what do you mean by that? Well, one of the challenges, many of my clients who are large firms who primarily prime work and they look for subcontractors, is they are challenged with whether or not they're going to be in a relationship. Like, is it going to be good that we're going to work together? Are we going to be able to deliver quality? Does your mission, your vision, the culture, your way of thinking, your perspective, your ideas, does it align to our business? You see, you might think that that doesn't matter. Oh, it's just work, right? It's just a design. It's just some engineering. It's just some, performance, right? They never see us. But actually, it matters more to not only your partner, which is your prime, but it also matters to the client a lot. A lot. So leaning in and stepping out of being just focused on price starts with relationship. It starts with who you know. Yeah, who you know. Okay, now we're talking about networking and not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's who you know. Who are the clients that you currently serve right now that are competing in the public sector? You already have a track record with them. What new conversations could you have right now about public work? Now, how do we bring this up? Like, what's the next step? I'm going to share with you quickly before we move on to number three. So this really works well. One of our clients, he's out of California, and he has an office in Texas. And he didn't have a lot of relationships in Texas. And he had a big network in California. Well, he looked at his client roster, clients that he had served in the last 5 years, and it didn't take him too long. It took us like, I asked him, I said, how long does this actually take? He says, actually, it took me a few minutes because as soon as I looked at their list, I knew exactly what companies had a farther reach than California. And then it just narrowed down to a few. So he reached out to those clients, told them that he was in Texas, right? Opening a new opportunity to do business on the private side in Texas. And then he also said, well, you know what? We're actually positioning to work with X agency. And they were elated. In fact, he did his research and found out by going to their website, by looking at a few places that we shared with him, he found out that some of his clients, the top three clients that he had on his list, were actually doing business with those public agencies. And he was excited. And so now he's positioning as, oh, there's value. In fact, we did a really small project for this agency, would love to partner, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's an open discussion, not only on public contracts, but also private contracts. You see, you probably already have a mountain size amount of assets in your business, but you're not leveraging them appropriately. Another way to look at it is, and I'll just make it really brief because I didn't want to go too in detail with all the types of strategies. And it doesn't matter where you are. Like, general suggestions or strategies that you might see online and the internet or might have heard in a conversation, it may or may not work for you, because just the structure of your business, the size of your business, the goals of your business, the vision that you have as a visionary, as a business owner, as a founder. I mean, there's so many variables to say whether or not a strategy is actually going to work for you. So, in fact, what I'd like to do is help you out with that. Okay. I'm hosting a virtual event that's coming up. It's free for general admission. All you have to do is register. Go to realbusinessrealcontracts.com. Register, put all your information in because that helps us tailor the conversation. You'll have some time. If you upgrade to VIP, you get a chance to actually, have a consultation live in real time and get the answers that you need so that you can take some action. But the third thing that I want to share with you today is the fact that you're not alone and it's easier to correct than you think. All right. So the first thing that we talked about is translation. Instead of trying to, match what the big firms are doing, just lean into your strengths. Just lean into your story. It's unique and powerful all on its own. It's something that no one else can say. I mean, imagine, yeah, the bigger firms, oh, yeah, they got tons of money and tons of people, but they also have tons of control and tons of delays, and everything is slower. Do you know how fast you can move? You move so much faster than they could. Yes, that is a benefit of being small, nimble, lean, right? Passing on the cost savings to your client. These are all things that should be elevated instead of hidden. Okay. So the second thing we talked about is relationships. You already have the relationships. Oftentimes, when I'm speaking to contractors and principals, they already are sitting on a pile of relationships that they're not leveraging, they're not tapping into. And it's as simple as picking up the phone and calling and telling them, this is the vision. Like, I am doing this. People want to rally around people who want to create community, connection, and create a better world. It's just what it is. So if you're sharing that idea with people, yeah, there's going to be folks that don't align. Great. So then you don't work with them, right? You work with those that are going to make you and your team happy to come to work. Okay. And lastly, just covering, closing out this conversation to say translation, translation, translation. Show up to the industry days. Go to the events. All the events, any event that is relevant to the work that you actually want to do. There are more than half a million contracts that are awarded every year by nearly 100,000 agencies here in the United States alone. You could do work anywhere. Those opportunities are available. If you're a GC, you can just get licensed in another state. It's not that big of a deal, right? These are things that you can do. There's opportunities. You might be considering acquiring a business, merging, right? You could be considering some of that. Think about the public buying that's happening in that state or in that city. It changes the conversation, it increases your value, and it helps you stabilize your business. It helps you get out of being in this like fight or flight every day, right? It's exhausting. But instead, you can focus on ease, simplicity, peace, focus on strategy and structure and creating an environment that just influences how people create and how people show up and how people represent your company. That all matters. So, hopefully, this was helpful for you. If it was, comment below or give me a like or something. But either way, I would love to see you at the upcoming virtual event, realbusinessrealcontracts.com. The reason why this matters is honestly, I'm just really tired of the wrong information out there for y'all. And I want you guys to have the right information that's custom fit your situation. You don't have to guess anymore whether or not it's going to work. You don't have to see something and be like, well, let me try that. Listen, you know that time goes by fast. You see your kids growing up like weeds, right? So fast. Time goes quickly. So why not invest that time in the right solution so you can go faster, get the results you want, and see the success and results on the other side? You start now so that you can start to see the progress this year. My goal for you is to start to help you see the wins and build a long term relationship with you. This is not a one time thing. You can't get rid of me. I want to make sure that we're partners in business so that we can support you in the long run. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow.